Welcome back to the Commanders Declassified, your home for all things Washington Commanders. I am your host, Ellie. We got Eric in the building. Eric, what is going on today?
Howdy, howdy. It's a happy week. The weather's nice. It's almost draft season. Super happy. I'm in a great mood
Let's
tonight.
go. I love it. I love it. Mike, what's happening, man?
What's popping, y'all? I have no complaints about waiting until the last couple of days for the draft because I know once it starts, it's going to start.
Start fast. That's right. Since we're talking, so we're gonna talk a little bit about we're gonna give our final thoughts on the three quarterbacks or the four quarterbacks or whatever, and then we're gonna talk about what we know are the 9 picks they're gonna make, not names but positions. We're gonna get into that a little bit. But before we get started, Eric, let me ask you this. In all of the drafts that you've been a part of or watch as a fan of the Redskins Commanders, what was the one early round pick that you were like, guys, what are you doing when they made that pick?
Oh man, so what's funny is when I was like younger, like back in the quote unquote glory years, this team never had a first round pick. Like ever. Did not. I mean, Art Monk, it was like Art Monk in 81, and like Desmond Howard was the next pick. So like the head scratcher draft pick, gosh. They just drafted a bunch of bums, but I was super excited about them because I didn't know enough not to be like the Michael Westbrook pick. I guess Andre Johnson would be the one, like in retrospect, and it's not that Andre Johnson. It's the offensive tackle from Penn State they drafted, I want to say in like 96, who never even made an active roster. They took him with the 31st pick in the draft, and this dude never even cracked a roster, like didn't even suit up for a game. That's how bad of a whiff it was. So all you people that say we never should have got rid of Charlie Casserly, just know that he drafted an offensive tackle that in the first round that never even suited up for a game.
Right.
So that's a in retrospect head scratcher, but like in real time, maybe the Haskins pick instead of Montez Sweat at 15 was a little bit of a head scratcher, although I was kind of on board with it at the time, but I would have rather had Montez Sweat early, and they ended up getting him anyway, obviously. So yeah, they've drafted some bums for sure. But I was pretty much on board with most of the first round picks because I was drinking that Kool-Aid.
Yeah. I feel you, man. What about you, Mike? Same question.
Honestly, the Dotson pick from a couple of years ago, I was studying so many receivers coming out, and we drafted Dotson, and I'm like, what? But getting to know him the last few years, kind of turned into one of my favorite players on the team at the moment. So you never know. Like you can hate a player or hate a pick one day, and 12 months later, it could be one of your favorite picks ever. And hopefully he can bounce back this year. But that's another topic for another day.
That's a funny thing too, because with like Dotson, like you could have had Olave, I think at 10, but you moved back and grabbed Dotson, and they're basically the same guy. Olave has just had a lot more opportunities because he's pretty much been all the Saints have had. But if you look at like their yards per reception, like target share, everything like that, it's like, he's basically, Dotson has half the receptions on half the targets, and like the percentages are exactly the same, like almost across the board. It's pretty wild.
Except for the drops. That became an issue last year. But I'm going to say a similar name. You said Jahan Dotson. I'm saying Josh Dotson in 2016. That wide receiver pick. I was just like, what? What are we doing with this pick? Now, out of TCU, he was still, considered a pretty good prospect. But for what we needed on that 2016 team, it just was like, dude, this ain't it right here. I found an article on ABC News of the 7 worst first-round draft picks of the Redskins history. Number 7, Bobby Wilson, defensive tackle, 1991. He went 17th overall. Number 6 is Josh Dotson, wide receiver, 2016, 22nd overall. Number 5, RG3, 2012, second overall. I don't know if I agree with that one, but it's on the list. Number 4, Heath Schuler, quarterback, 1994, third overall. Do you guys remember what you thought about Heath Schuler at the time when they drafted him? Because it was either him or Ryan Leaf, correct?
No, it was Trent. Dilfer. It was him and Dilfer.
Guilford. Okay, right.
I don't. I was a young buck still.
Yeah, the Heath Schuler pick. That was the first year of Norv Turner, and we just thought he's the quarterback whisperer, and Heath Schuler had that great year, but we didn't realize that Heath Schuler was a one read and run guy with tiny hands. So we learned that later. This
And
was
then
way
we
before
draft
all the
Farrat.
yeah.
We drafted
And they
Gus
took
Farrat that
Farrat,
same year,
who was
right?
a prototypical quarterback and had a way better career.
Way better.
And
Farrat
I
was
was
playing until like the 2010s, I think.
and I was
Felt
his
like.
mini me also. I don't know if you've ever seen that picture, Mike. I'll share it. But yeah, I have a picture of me standing next to Farrat, and it literally looks like Dr. Evil and Mini Me. It's embarrassing, but funny at the same.
It's amazing is what it is. I remember being really young, reading newspapers about Heath Schuler and being excited about it. And then like you found out very quickly, I think even in training camp, it was like, this guy is not the guy. Number 3 was Desmond Howard, wide receiver at 1992, 4th overall. I remember being a small child with my mother in Denny's. Denny's had a newspaper with an article of Desmond Howard on the front of the cover. And I remember it was like his contract was crazy for back then. I think it was like 7 years for $28 million or something like that. And everybody was like losing their minds about the amount of money he made. I'm like, guys wouldn't get out of bed for that nowadays. But he's number 3 all-time worst pick according to this list. Number 2, Andre Johnson, the tackle that Eric had mentioned. Number 1, Cal Rossi, halfback, 1946, 9th overall. Okay, I'm not even gonna act like I know.
1946. They are doing. They're doing the most. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, that
is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
it has to be. I have to research that. It has to be like because he murdered somebody or something. Like,
yeah, he must have showed up wearing his underwear outside his pants to the first day of training camp and just talking to a sock puppet.
1946.
Yeah, there's
no, you know what it was? He wasn't eligible to be drafted, and they drafted him anyway.
There you go. You know.
Okay.
Nah, then they came back the next year and drafted him again.
Okay, yeah, that's a. Yeah.
It's like, how did Dan Snyder
There is a reason you don't hear about the 1940s. You don't hear about the 1940s Washington football team. That's crazy.
That is crazy. All right, let's talk quarterbacks real quick because I want to get into your positions. We're going to go through the 4 quarterbacks. Give me your final thoughts on each of them. We're going to start with how I think they're ranked in the draft. Actually, I'm going to go 5 deep, 6 deep. Let's go with Bo Nix. Eric, give me your final thoughts on Bo Nix. What do you think he does in his NFL career? Where do you think he goes? Not team, but just sort of the area of the draft.
I know what people are saying, draft mix and whatnot. I will be shocked if that dude goes before the 3rd round. Yeah. I just see he's just not. He ain't it. He's not. He's just not going to be a good NFL quarterback. Not to crap. I hope he proves me wrong. Good luck, Bo Nix. I just don't see it with Bo Nix. I see like AJ McCarron when I see Bo Nix.
Yeah, I like it. I can agree with that. Mike, what do you think? Bo Nix, final thoughts, man.
I don't hate him, but I definitely can see why Eric doesn't think he's going to go before the 3rd round. Just feel like it's a numbers game, and he's just not as good as the QBs behind him. And I felt like when Penix had his pro day, we'll talk about him next, but I feel like that really was horrible for Nix, absolutely horrible for him. And yeah, I don't want Washington drafting them at all. If that makes anybody feel some type of way, so be it. I just don't want him. I just don't think he's going to be a nice backup. I'll say that. But that's all I can give him at the moment.
Yeah, he kind of it to me. I just don't see it. I mean, you can't erase the Auburn tape and replace it with the Oregon tape last year, because he had some good stats. I think if you look at the offense he was playing, every quarterback has good stats in the offense. I was never a fan of Nix when he was at Auburn. I went through a little period of my life where I was a fan of Auburn. I thought Nix was awful. I think there will be a team that talks themselves into them, but I don't think it'll happen. Eric, I agree with you before the 3rd round. I think this is draft hype. He's a career backup. He might make some spot starts here and there, but I think he's probably really on a level of like an Aiden O'Connell or one of those guys that got some starts last year that aren't going to be really long-term guys.
I am rooting for him, though.
Yeah, no doubt. All of them. Michael Penix Jr., Eric. What are your final thoughts on this guy?
It's going to depend on fit, like where he goes. If he doesn't have to start right away, I see him as like an Andy Dalton level starter. He'll be like the Mendoza line for the NFL for NFL quarterbacks, where he'll be just like that. You know, you rank him 1 through 32. He'll be in that 15 to 17 range. I think he'll be a solid starter. I just don't know that he's going to be a superstar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the injury history scares me to death too.
And I'm gonna pick up where you left off. That knee, man. It's the injury. Like that. If I feel like if it wasn't for the injury, based off his combine and his tape, we might be talking about a top half of the round, first round quarterback, and he may still end up going in the top half of the first round if a team gets desperate enough. But yeah, like if he can stay healthy, I really do see him being a fringe top 10 quarterback in the correct system. But I mean, you could say that about any quarterback, but for him specifically, he has the arm. He has the athleticism. He's fast. He ran like a 4.36 40 at the at his pro day. 4.5. Okay, yeah. So he's not that still fast, but still fast enough. He's a baller or a gamer. I'm not going to forget that game you had versus Texas in the playoffs last season in the Sugar Bowl. I really and that was like one of my first times seeing him play a whole game. Well, not one of my. It was the first time I saw him play a whole game, start to finish. And yeah, I really like what I saw, but not enough to go with the second overall pick. But I really do feel like he's a Raider, man. I really feel like Oakland might pull the trigger on him, man. Rather they trade back or stay at where are they? 12th, I believe. Yeah, like I could see him in Las Vegas for real, man.
Yeah, I struggle with Michael Penix a little bit because I do really like him. I think he's got that right type of mentality. His arm is nuts, but like a lot of professionals have said, he's kind of like a 3-point shooter. That was the analogy that I heard out there that I like the best. No mid-range game, right? And do those guys really last that long in the league? Probably not. You know who I've kind of sort of like settled on a comparison for Penix? A skinny Dante Culpepper. That's kind of what I'm seeing with this guy. Like, and if he has a Randy Moss to throw to, sky's the limit, right? Chris Carter, some downfield routes, things like that. But if they're going to try to run something like New England run where it's all underneath routes, I don't see that working. He is, to me, the hardest to predict at the next level, where I'm just not really sure, but it will ultimately decide that, be dependent on the situation. I think Minnesota's a great spot for him. With Justin Jefferson running down the field, he'll get him the ball, no doubt. I think that would be awesome. The Raiders, I like it to some degree. I think I would rather play with Justin Jefferson now than Devontae Adams at this point in their careers. The Vikings also have a tight end too. So I think Penix is really just a coin flip for me about what he is in the NFL. But I certainly root for him. I don't think he will be a bust, though. His mentality alone makes me believe he won't be a bust. It's just about how high will his ceiling go. And that I'm not sure of. And it's going to really depend on who he plays with and the style of offensive coordinator that comes in there behind him. So, all right. Who's next? JJ McCarthy. Eric, where are you at on McCarthy?
I'm coming around on JJ McCarthy a lot, actually. I've actually, the past few weeks, been watching him quite a bit. Well, I've watched almost all of his games, and I'm starting to kind of see why people talk him up so much. There's not a lot there, but it's quality over quantity with him. The concept, the stuff that they do on offense. We watched that Maryland game, and that was probably his worst game of the year. Honestly, like he was not good in that game. Anything he threw over the middle was a disaster. He threw good sideline balls, and that's what I thought he was. As I've watched him more, his ability to layer throws, I think, is a little bit underrated. And his third down, like when they would put him in like third and long and he would have to throw, because that's kind of what Michigan did all year, was just run. Third down, make JJ throw it. He came through every time. I like what he does. I see what I kind of am starting to see what people see in him. I think he's got the makings of a pretty good NFL quarterback. And if the team were to say maybe trade down, I think he's a viable target for sure. if you want to move back. I still don't see him going in the top 5 personally, but I can see him top 15, maybe cracking the top 10. Quarterbacks maybe get overdrafted some, so it's possible that he goes a little higher. I would have a hard time drafting him in the top 10, but if he's there at like 11 or 12 and Washington were to trade back, I'm all for it. I think he's got the makings of a good, solid NFL quarterback, borderline top 10 NFL quarterback. I actually really do like JJ McCarthy. Underrated mobility, keeps plays alive. He can extend them. He can roll out, still looking downfield to pass. There's a lot to like there. It's just the sample size is so small just because of what Michigan liked to do this year. But I like him.
Who was your NFL comp for McCarthy if you had to pull one out?
Honestly, you're not going to like this, and I'm going to get heat for it. Poor man's Joe Burrow, honestly. I don't think he's quite at that level, maybe where Burrow is, but the demeanor and the kind of slipperiness in the pocket, I liken kind of the sneaky mobility. I liken a lot of that to a Joe Burrow type of quarterback.
I'll take your poor man's Joe Burrow, and I'll raise you a rich man's Alex Smith.
Yeah, I can see that.
I really like. I feel bad because at least set us up with that Maryland tape, man.
He really did. He's like, let me pick the
worst game because, and I'm a Terps fan, so I know how their defense is, and that's like one of the games I didn't watch. So, like, looking at the game and looking at his throws, I'm like, this dude is not it. But like other stuff I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, I can see why everybody's high on him. He does have some mobility. And then you get to know a little bit about his mental makeup, and you're like, oh, this dude is a gamer. And you like, so you don't know what to truly think because the production is little. Like, it's very little.
He's got that dog in him, is what you're saying.
He's got that dog.
I don't know who, I don't know if he got that dog on him or not, but at the same time, I do feel like he can be successful in this league in the right system. And if the best that he can be is a rich man's Alex Smith, you got a decent quarterback.
Yeah, so a rich man's Alex Smith is interesting. What parts of the game is he better at than Alex Smith to make you say a rich man's Alex Smith?
I think he's a better runner with the ball than Alex Smith was coming out of Utah. I think he's definitely a better passer. And like I from what I remember from Smith, when the 49ers drafted him number 1, I was like, that's interesting because it's a quarterback, not from one of those big name schools. But you see him play, you see how long his career lasts, and you're like, okay, they kind of got that pick right. But with McCarthy, it's like I can see him doing the things that Alex Smith did, but in a more dynamic way. Like, I think he can throw it a little bit better. He can run it a little bit better. Maybe that's the times that we're in right now, but I'm just saying, like, or maybe I'm thinking too much about the old Alex Smith that came to Washington.
Yeah,
and not enough about San Fran 49er Alex Smith. But I feel like the comp is that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling Alex Smith. I don't know this Joe Burrow stuff, dude. You ain't know with that one.
Alex Smith's issue was he was too conservative with the football. He was a good passer. He could throw the ball downfield. He just chose to take the safe throw.
I don't think we'll see that with McCarthy at all.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the comp. That's what he would do better. I think he's a little more aggressive with the ball. I actually think Drake May is closer to an Alex Smith type than Alex Smith is, or than JJ is. Obviously not with the conservatism of the ball, but just the athleticism, because Alex Smith was a legit runner. Yeah. Daniel Jones is another comp there for Alex Smith. Like, that's the kind of player, obviously not as a much more turnover prone version of Alex Smith, but that's an interesting comp for sure. I can see it though, because he does have that really sneaky mobility for sure.
I think JJ McCarthy to me is like Tony Romo. That's kind of what I'm getting. And it depends on how willing he is to take chances in the NFL. He didn't have to at Michigan, but what does he want to be at the NFL level? I see Tony Romo. He has Tony Romo's kind of elusiveness. even in that Maryland game, we watched him escape sacks after sack, right? He can do that. He can throw on the run. He's a smart football player. Tony Romo was a very intelligent quarterback. He just was overconfident in some of the throws that he could make and had turnovers at the worst time. Now, Tony Romo had a lot of clutch games, a lot of clutch plays. People forget that because of the issues in the playoffs where he tripped up. He had a chance to run to the end zone and stuff like that. But I think Tony Romo is a fair comparison for JJ McCarthy. He's also I like JJ McCarthy a lot. You guys know I'm a Michigan fan. I think to me, I was surprised that he was 6'2 plus because he seems so small in the pocket. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's your uniforms or something. But I think Tony Romo is my comp for JJ McCarthy. I think he goes in the top 9 picks. I still think he's probably earmarked for Minnesota if New England doesn't trade out. But that's what maybe Las Vegas. I don't think he's that great of a fit for Las Vegas because Las Vegas is going to need the quarterback to do more to be successful there. So I think Minnesota in the top 9. I think Minnesota moves up to get this guy. So, all right, let's get to the good stuff. All right, Eric, Drake May. Where do you think he goes? What are your final thoughts on him? And give me a comp for him as well.
Yeah, I'm cooling on Drake May a little bit as we get closer to draft season. I actually like JJ McCarthy more than I like Drake May.
Ooh.
And it's hard for me because I think Drake May ceiling wise has the highest ceiling in the class. I think he has every tool that he has puts him above every other quarterback, including Caleb Williams, as far as potential and what he could be. He also probably has a much lower floor than the other 4 guys because he seems like he picked up a lot of bad habits in this past year, kind of trying to play hero ball at North Carolina because there really wasn't a lot around him. And we saw it in the game we watched against Miami. A good chunk of the season, he's running for his life. The offense really wasn't built to help him in a lot of cases. And I think he seems like he picked up a lot of bad habits this season. So that's got to be coached out of him. So I do still like Drake May a lot. I think he's a little bit more of a project that even like a JJ McCarthy would be, even though McCarthy doesn't have like the sample size that May does. I still like Drake May quite a bit. And honestly, we kind of touched on it earlier. The comp that I have is somewhere between Daniel Jones and Alex Smith right now for May, because he is a very mobile quarterback. He has the potential to just use his athleticism to make incredible plays, but there's also that streak of just like ridiculous nonsense that he'll throw up sometimes, and just these god awful throws that we saw kind of from Sam Howell and we've seen from Taylor Heineke in the past that we don't really love. Physical tools are off the charts for him. I think maybe not off the charts, but I think he's the most physically gifted and has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this class, but it is a risk to take him. I still think he goes. I don't think he gets past New England. I think maybe Minnesota even trades up to try to get him. I don't think he gets out of the top 3 because I think his potential is still that good. I'm just not quite as sold on him as I was earlier in the offseason. And maybe it's just listening to Ellie trash him all offseason. I don't know. Maybe it's getting to me, but I've soured a little bit on Drake May. I still wouldn't be mad at all if they took him. It's just maybe a little bit more of a project. Maybe not a week 1 starter, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. Welcome home, man. Mike, where you at on May?
It's so hard for me to like accurately judge a quarterback because of just the type of person I am. I just feel like I'm not going to set you up for failure. I'm going to make you do the things that you do great and not the things that you're not so good at. Like he underthrows receivers a lot. I probably wouldn't put the ball in his hand to win. Now I got with Washington having a second overall pick. I'm sorry, you would be like, well, you kind of want a quarterback to win you games and whatever. With May, I just think he's not that quarterback at the moment. But the tools that he have, I can use those in good ways. I wouldn't do what somebody like the enemy did and have him line up and throw the ball 500, 600 times a game. But at the same time, if I had a nice rushing attack and you're trying to stop the run and you start trying to cheat the stop the run, I got the perfect quarterback that's gonna go right over your head and drop bombs on you. So yeah, like I like him for what he is. If Washington decides to draft him with the second overall pick, I wouldn't complain. I know he may have, like a lot of people have been saying, he has the lowest ceiling. The highest ceiling, but the lowest floor. He's not ready to start right now. If you're Washington, you got to play Mariota the first season, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, man, forget all that. Like, like just put him in the fire and let him grow. Like, I'm cool with putting him in the starter week 1. And if he got to take the lumps, he has to take the lumps. But I'm not running away from May. I'm just as high as him as I am on the other 2 quarterbacks. And it really hasn't changed. Like, I can work with him. I can definitely work with him.
Who's your comp for
him? Man, I know we always do the rich man, poor man stuff, but for me, he really does feel like a poor man Josh Allen. And that's that y'all don't know this, but Josh Allen was like my favorite quarterback coming out of college. When I first saw him in Wyoming, I was like, oh, he's nice. He got the cannon. He's scrambling really like that dude is nice. And it just hurt me to see him go from middle of the second round mocks to end of first round mocks to like, oh, I guess Washington won't have a chance to draft him. So yeah, but nevertheless, I really like that comp. Like, it does remind me of the first time I was watching Josh Allen. Maybe not as impressive, but impressive enough.
Yeah, I agree that Drake May has the highest ceiling in the draft. I also think he's the least likely to reach that ceiling because of the amount of work it's going to take to get there. I think he goes, if there is a quarterback that could slide in the draft, I think it would be Drake May. Not saying it's going to happen. I think he does go 3 overall. Whether or not New England stays there, I think he's a 3rd quarterback off the board. My comp for him, Jason Campbell. What do you guys think?
No.
I'm just kidding.
I was about to say, I was about to really go in on that. Go ahead, man.
No. Here it is. Drew Lock, when he came out of Missouri a couple years ago. Huge arm, really mobile quarterback, right? Has all the potential in the world, but can you get it out of him? That's the question, right? Drew Lock was a uber talented quarterback coming out. Great prospect. Never got to his ceiling. Never developed fully in what they needed him to be. That's my comp. Drew Lock.
You can have that one.
So I got to go back. Did I say between Daniel Jones and Alex Smith? I actually meant between Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence. That was my floor and ceiling for him. I think I said Alex Smith.
You did.
But I think Trevor Lawrence is like his ceiling, I think.
Trevor Lawrence now?
No, Trevor Lawrence, like potential wise, because he hasn't hit his ceiling either, and his team ain't doing him any favors either. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go Jaden Daniels. Eric, what do you got for him? Where you at with him?
He is my QB4 at this point. He's actually dropped, in my opinion. I am less and less enthused about the possibility of Jaden Daniels being here the closer we get to the draft. And honestly, the more I hear that he's coming here, the less I believe it. There's so many things that scare me about him. And right now with all the draft people, it seems like there's a lot of groupthink in a place. And like everybody praises mobility for him, right? I don't see him as a mobile quarterback. I'm gonna be honest with you. He's fast. He is a running quarterback because a mobile quarterback will extend plays, but look to throw. He'll keep plays alive. Jaden Daniels, I mean, I watched almost every snap of him, and there are very, very few examples of him leaving the pocket and still throwing the football. Like there's less than 5 all season from what I saw. That scares the crap out of me as a quarterback evaluator because he's not going to be able to do that and get away with it in the NFL. It terrifies me. You've got to play quarterback position. I think I've made it pretty clear. I don't like running quarterbacks. I like mobile quarterbacks. I don't like a guy who's going to take off when he leaves the pocket because he's going to get himself killed, because that's the other thing is that he doesn't protect himself when he runs the ball. And like, look at Like, I mean, look at Anthony Richardson last year. Anthony Richardson's like 35 pounds heavier than Jaden Daniels, and he lasted 5 games playing like that. It's just, it scares the crap out of me. I can't deal with it. Now, in the pocket, he's money in the pocket. He's a very good pocket passer, and if stuff is on schedule and he's got protection, he's good. If stuff breaks down, he just takes off running, and that terrifies me as a quarterback, and I can't get past that. Now, if he comes here, I'm all in, right? If they draft him and he's the guy they go with, he's the guy they go with. That's awesome. I'm not going to be super enthused about it if they pass other guys up. And seriously, at this point, I'm kind of teed and trade down. I'm listening to Minnesota right now. If they want to come up to 2, I'm all in for moving down and maybe jumping back up into the top 10 and maybe grabbing McCarthy. I don't know. But Jaden Daniels, for me, is just not it. Now, when they draft him, I'm wearing a number 5 jersey or whatever he's wearing. Now, he ain't taking Tressway's number. But, I'm all in if they draft him. I don't want him. I'm having the hardest time getting excited about drafting Jaden Daniels other than like Bo Nix. Like I would rather have any of those other guys maybe than him. He just scares the crap out of me as a quarterback because people like to compare him to Lamar Jackson. He's not Lamar. Like he's not, Lamar's not the biggest guy, but Lamar knows how to run the football and he protects himself. And even Lamar, as good as he's been and as big a Lamar fan as I am, how many times has he missed multiple games in the season? Like how many complete seasons has he played in the league? I just need my quarterback to be a quarterback, not a running back. And for that reason, I got Jaden Daniels moving down my board. And I will die on this hill.
That hurts, man. That hurts. Mike, bring us back to reality. Where are you at with Jaden Daniels? Oh, did you give a comp, Eric?
Oh, comp RG3. Honestly, he's probably a little better passer than RG3 is, but running wise, he runs tall. He doesn't slide, doesn't protect himself, doesn't like to get out of bounds. He's going to get hurt. That's RG3 for me.
I'll pick up where you left off. That's my comp too, but I feel like he's RG3 if RG3 wasn't a track star and he just was a straight up football player. Because I do think Jaden's body kind of resembles quarterback better, whereas RG3 was just straight up and down track star. Like you just looked at him and you see a track star that just so happened to be an NFL quarterback. But with Daniels, like I don't hate him. Like the same way with May, like I see the good in him. I feel like he's a more polished passer than May, and he doesn't struggle with a lot of things that May struggles with. I know there was a lot of him throwing across the middle and people saying that he couldn't do it or whatever. Like, that's not true. Like, he can do it. He might not did it a lot, but he can do it. I feel like you can build around him, and if you can get him to not have such happy feet in the pocket, have him be more cerebral, I would honestly, he could have a nice, if he can like look at Drew Brees tape and kind of develop that sort of pocket presence, I feel like he could really be a great quarterback in this league. But even if he doesn't, I feel like the ceiling for him, top 10 quarterback, especially if he's in the right system, which I feel like Washington is starting to develop. I'm not saying they're there yet, but if they drafted him, I feel like he's in a better position than Haskins was when he came, and that's the last quarterback we drafted in the first round. So that alone kind of gives a 1-up or a plus bonus for any of the quarterbacks that Washington's drafts. But as far as Daniels himself, yeah, I feel like a RG3 or not a track star RG3 is a great comp, and it's not really too much negative I could say about him outside of the recklessness with the scrambling, maybe his body. I don't think his arm is like as physically strong as the other quarterbacks, but everybody says he throws the best deep ball. I didn't say it because I don't know. Like they all look the same to me, honestly. But,
They don't both down.
right. But others are saying that he could throw it the best. So, and I'm not a chick, but I do dig deep ball. So, yeah, like bring him here. Bring him here.
Yeah. I think so for me, I like the Lamar Jackson comp, excuse me. I don't, obviously not as jukey in the run game as Lamar is, but I think he's a highly effective runner. He's a better passer than Lamar was coming out of Louisville, by a lot too, by the way. And Lamar could play quarterback at Louisville. I watched a lot of Lamar at Louisville. You guys know this has been my guy for 3 years. I want to come to the team, and I'm excited it's finally going to happen. Um, ceiling wise, I think he's a top 10 quarterback. We tend to put 15 guys in the top 10, so I'm not gonna be overly zealous about like top 5, but I think he can be a top 10 quarterback. I think he could be the best quarterback in the division year 2, right? I think he'd be better than Dak. I think he'd be better than Jalen. I think he could be better than Daniel Jones. Year 2, we will have the best quarterback in the division, and we're gonna be on our way. I'm excited. My comp, I told you, Lamar. I don't know. I ain't got a lot else to say because Jay Daniels is going to be the pick at number 2, and Eric will get on board, and we're going to be high fiving each other about it later. So I'm not worried. Eric, you'll come around.
My other comp, honestly, was like a more mobile Teddy Bridgewater. That was my other comp as far as like arm strength and throwing motion, stuff like that, which isn't terrible. Like I like Teddy Bridgewater coming out. He had a bad break with the injury. But yeah, I can't. He doesn't move the needle for me. He just scares me. There's too much risk there because I just don't see him being available enough to make an impact.
Is on board now with Jaden Daniels. Let us unite behind Jaden Daniels, Commanders fan base. This is the way. All right, Caleb Williams. Eric, does he deserve to be the number 1 overall pick?
Yeah, he is, and he's going into a great situation in Chicago. They're gonna, I guess, they're gonna come out of the top 10 with like Odunze or somebody too. They're gonna have a heck of a draft. They're in great position, and they're already looking like a strong team. Bears going to bear, but I think not even the Bears can bear their way out of this one. I think he's a home run pick for them. There's some concerns. He holds the ball a long time, but he's got a lot of good highlights, a lot of good tape in general going back throughout his college career. I think he's number 1, and if he somehow slips to number 2, then Washington should snap him right up.
Does his height concern you at all?
No. Not even a little bit. I think we're past the point where a 6'1" quarterback is really a problem. They can scheme that. The offenses can do that. Can work around that. There's been some pretty good 6'1" and under quarterbacks in recent years. I don't see a problem with Caleb Williams being 6'1".
Who'd you comp for him?
I still say somewhere between Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes. A lot of young Russ with the kind of playground ball. And then make stuff up on the fly like Mahomes can do. That's a bold comp, but that's the skill set. I don't know if he ever reaches those heights. I hope he does. But that's the type of player that I see him as.
Okay. Mike, you agree with that?
I'm mad Eric's stealing all my comps, man. But nevertheless, so I'll say this. When it comes to like pocket presence, I just mentioned Drew Brees. I feel like he's kind of a hybrid between somebody like a traditional quarterback like Brady and the new school quarterback like Mahomes. I like those 3 quarterbacks as far as like the model of pocket presence. You got Brady with the traditional, Brees hybrid, Mahomes new school. With Caleb Williams, I really feel like he has that Mahomes pocket presence. And that alone is like great to have as a quarterback. But then you put in his intangibles, his arm strength. I don't have a problem with it. He has a little wiggle to him. He can scramble a little bit. I definitely feel like out of all the quarterbacks, he's by far the number 1 quarterback. Kind of sucks that Washington is not in the position to draft him, being so close with him being from the hometown too. But at the same time, I'm trying not to jinx him. I'm really not trying to jinx him. But tag Chicago. Come on, man. Like, what are y'all doing with these quarterbacks where y'all get them in y'all hands? Like, you're going to have Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. You got Cole Kmet at tight end. You got a nice running back stable. Like, please have him throw with 4,000 yards either this season or next season, and just end that curse that y'all have up there, because it's time. Like, I get Chicago's an old school franchise, they blue collar, this, and that, but come on now, y'all also had Michael Jordan in that city for a long time. So y'all know about revolutionizing things. So time to just put some energy in that football team. And I feel like Caleb Williams is the perfect person to do that for that team. And I feel like we're going to get an up close and personal view with him real early in the season next year.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not just Michael Jordan. They also had Frank Thomas, Ozzie Guillen. They had Ken Griffey Jr. for a little while. Patrick Kane in hockey, Bobby Holt. They've lived it up in Chicago. You know, Derrick Rose.
What?
Don't give
No, that was Cincinnati that had Ken Griffey.
No, Ken Griffey played for the White Sox for a while too, didn't he?
It was washed up Ken Griffey, if that was the case.
Oh, yeah.
Like 38-year-old Ken Griffey, but maybe Ken Sr., who knows?
Nope. I remember seeing him. Anyway, moving on. For me, I think he's Aaron Rodgers. I think I said that a couple of times. That's what I see more than I see Patrick Mahomes. And that, I think, is right. So now I'm questioning myself on Ken Griffey. Yeah, he played with the White Sox in 2008. I remember because I went to go see him.
Oh, yeah, he was like 61 at that point.
Yeah, and he literally fell asleep on the bench that game. I remember that because I was there. All right, we're going to wrap it up like this. We talked about 9 picks in the draft. Eric, give me your position counts for those 9 picks. What did you land on?
1 quarterback.
Okay.
2 offensive line, most likely 2 tackles, but there's possibly an interior offensive line. But I'm thinking 2 offensive line. I think you're drafting 2 linebackers. I think you're drafting a wide receiver, a safety, and a corner. And I think that's everybody, right? Is that 9? My math sucks.
Why 2 linebackers after the free agency period that they've had?
Because those 2, because the short-term deal. The Bobby Wagner is on a 1-year deal. Jamin Davis is essentially on a 1-year deal. So I think you start restocking that. And, we've seen the way that San Francisco was built, how highly they value the linebacker position. So I can see two linebackers.
Okay.
Oh, and an edge rusher. That's my last one.
Yep. Okay. Mike, what about your 9?
Can I cheat and say 8 because I think we're going to trade up back into the first round? Or should I say that for next week's show? But no, I'm joking. The 9 picks, I feel like 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, a defensive end, 2 offensive linemen, and 2 linebackers. And did I say running back? I think I said running back. So nope. 2 wide receivers. So that's 9 picks, I think.
Cool. You got them restocking the cupboard all across the board.
Oh yeah, it's time. It's time. And I want to throw this tidbit in for running back because I know somebody's going to say, "Oh, he just signed Austin Eckler, this, and that." For starters, it was only one year deal, I believe. Secondly, I feel like you get a running back late in the draft, and you just teach them the ways. So next year in 2025. You running with Brian Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, and this second year beast running back that you was building in the lab all 2024.
Will Shipley.
That's all I got. Man. Hey, Will Shipley, what's the Bama from Oregon? Bucky
Irving, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'll take them all. I'll even take the safety / running back from Utah if y'all wanted to put him as a running back. Like, just find some running back in rounds 5 through 7. Do not pick a running back earlier than round 5. We don't need it this year. But that 5th round running back will be a beast in 2025, I feel like. So, yeah, but that's just my 2 cents.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up like this. I got 1 quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Sorry, just want to say his name again. I think they get a wide receiver. I think that's probably going to be 2nd round. I got 1 tight end. I got a left tackle. I got a guard, an edge rusher, a running back, a cornerback, and a safety. So I don't have them doubling up at any position throughout the draft, just because I think our needs are kind of across the board after some of the free agents that we lost. And post free agency signings. I think we got a lot of needs. We're going to sort of spread the love a little bit on 9 different positions and come out of the draft some real winners with our guy working his magic in the late rounds to bring back
Peters.
Adam Peters. Thank you. I was going to say Alex Smith, but it's Adam Peters working his magic in the late rounds. The draft is coming up next week, folks. We're going to talk about it internally if we're going to do a live draft show or what we're going to do. I don't know yet. Stay tuned. We'll fill you guys in. But as always, thank you for rocking with us. Commanders, we are about to get a whole lot better next week. This is an exciting time for Commanders fans. It starts with winning the offseason. We've always done that. And then it goes into winning the regular season. And that's where we need to get better. I think we're going to do it this year, guys. Commanders Declassified. We are out of here. All right, let's get excited. Quarterback's coming home soon. Commanders Declassified.